Hi, and welcome back to Mindfulness, the channel where we try and open up a discussion about mental health. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Richa Dhameja. Dr. Dhameja is a licensed therapist and has been practicing counseling and hypnotherapy for the past 3 years. Her experience aligns well with the qualifications that one will look for in a therapist. As a dental clinician and implantologist with 25 years of experience, she has the sensitivity and knowledge required to understand all personality types as well as the unique needs that each person will have. She also understands the confidential aspect, which will help provide a safe space for any patients. She has a diploma in medical and dental hypnosis from the General Hypnotherapy Standards Council of UK. So thank you for joining us today, Doctor.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you for having me over.
Yeah, of course. So, Doctor, I wanted to know, what exactly is hypnotherapy?
Hypnotherapy is a therapeutic tool which is used to use the mind's natural ability to go into a trance-like state where your conscious mind or the alert mind takes a back seat, and your subconscious mind, which is your deeper, which is supposed to be 6,000 times more powerful than your intelligent conscious mind, that opens up, comes into the forefront, helps you explore all the patterns and maybe break some and becomes open to positive sessions. It's a trance state the individual goes into, they're really relaxed into it. And it helps them explore whatever is the discomfort, physical, mental, emotional, dysfunction or disorder, whatever they would want to call, and they would want to resolve for themselves, or maybe just even explore an issue we can resolve. Hypnotherapy can also be used just to enhance talents or even explore new talents, even do positive things like just increase focus, memory recall, increase your concentration, drop things like procrastination, or or otherwise even deal with very deep issues like a long-standing anxiety or long-standing obsessive compulsive disorder, or eating disorder, or a panic disorder.
Right.
Which has like proper physical symptoms. In my experience, after 6 to 15 sessions, a person feels drastic reduction in their symptoms. So let's say a panic disorder, the frequency will drastically drop.
Yeah. And that's a way shorter time period than most counseling methods, right?
I'm sorry, just say that again.
I was saying that's a way shorter time period than most other methods of counseling, right? Like most will take a few months.
Yeah. So clinical psychotherapy takes much longer in my experience. So some people may benefit from that only, and some individual may immensely benefit from hypnotherapy. By meeting and the initial few sessions help me orient what will work better for which person, what type of approach. So hypnotherapy may not work for the entire population, but for the people it works for, let's say 50 to 70%, it works very well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't heard too much about hypnotherapy in India specifically. Do you think that there's a taboo surrounding it?
Absolutely, yes. I deal with it every day. But I did my first course in hypnosis in UK in 1999. It was related with dental hypnosis only. That helped me deal with people who had dental anxiety, dental phobia, fear of the needle, fear of the doctor. They would feel extreme anxiety, and which will have proper symptoms like palpitations, sweating, cold palms, and things like that. And it was extremely stressful for them. So I started using hypnosis tips for my dental application, and the more I got into it, I realized that it helps all the other issues. I mean, all the general anxiety, mood disorders, everything. So then I went deeper into the subject, and I trained in medical and dental hypnosis. So a lot of chronic pains also, physical pains also, which cannot be explained, sometimes got dealt with medically and medicines and things like that. Hypnotherapy in India is, it's being practiced. People are being benefited, but it's not really out there in the open. The medical fraternity does not recognize it as a proper, though it's clinical hypnotherapy is a proper subject in UK, and it's being practice in Australia, UK, Canada, US, everywhere. In India, hypnotherapy has a lot of misconceptions about it. And later, if you want to specifically talk about just myths around it, I'll be happy to bust them. Hypnotherapy is very powerful. Maybe some people have used in the past, maybe negatively by magicians, and there is a stage things about it, and like very exaggerated dramatics. In a trained clinician's hand, it's a very powerful therapeutic tool. Like energy can be used for destruction and construction. Similarly, hypnotherapy, I mean, it has negative connotation, negative stories. In a good experienced clinician's hand, it's a powerful tool to actually deliver powerful results.
Right. So how do you think we can break the stigma around hypnotherapy?
I think by talking about more like
of course,
like helping.
Right.
When I meet people one, I tell the parents, I tell the teenagers what they're dealing with and things like that. I try to educate. So a lot of parents actually refuse hypnotherapy. They want to just stick to normal counseling, and then I just respect that. They're not, but once you experience the results, so I encourage parents that when I'm doing hypnotherapy, why don't you stay there?
Yeah.
When you're there, you can actually see what's happening, and becoming aware, experiencing it is actually the only way of breaking the myth.
Yeah.
And more and more people are enrolled and educated and aware, then they share with each other, and that's how the awareness spreads.
Right. Okay, so do you think people are becoming more open to this conversation about mental health now that lockdown has started?
I think the issues are really coming to the surface, and it's really, the dysfunction is very apparent, and I think people become way more open, let's say they were 5 years ago.
Yeah. I think because you're forced.
You're forced to identify when it's happening in your own house. You're forced to, become aware and then educate themselves and take action.
Yeah, you can't ignore it anymore, I think.
That's a lot. Earlier, it was really brushed aside that, they would just tell the person who's suffering or distract yourself.
Yeah.
So it's being addressed more, being talked about more openly, which is very nice.
Right. I think, So is there more of an inflow of patients that you've seen?
Absolutely. I think somehow this time, though it's been like a crisis and a trigger kind of situation, but yes, it's made people attend to themselves more and stay in touch with themselves more. Families to maybe spend more time together and maybe discuss issues better and maybe decide collectively to reach out more. Yes, so the patient inflow has increased.
Okay.
Some 50% of the cases would be more situation triggered, because it's causing the anxiety itself, the situation itself is causing anxiety.
Right.
And 50% of the time, it's just more communication between family that's making them reach out. So yes, the patient inflow is definitely.
So overall, you're saying that a lot of times what happens is that the lockdown can be the trigger for something, but the underlying issue is already there.
Absolutely. Much deeper layers.
Yeah, of course. So do you think
you're already facing dysfunction? Sorry?
I was saying, do you think specifically lockdown has impacted like adolescent mental health in specific? Because there's a lot more anxiety and all of that in this generation already. So do you think lockdown has added to that?
So absolutely, because see, it's a more isolating thing. Otherwise, you have a very balanced, there's a work-life balance kind of thing. You're going to school, you're interacting with friends the whole day. You're not just by yourself in a room, glued to a screen. You're actually interacting. You'll laugh, whatever, and sometimes or some stresses are just eased off just hanging out with friends and things like that. So there's less bonding with friends, and I think peers and friendship and bonding has a major role in teenage development and their own personality development. So you're just in a very limited environment. Everybody's so parents, everybody's facing some kind of stress. So it's been a stressful situation. It's been stressful for professionals, for businesses, and for students, everybody. So there's a normal way of nobody can go out and play. Nobody can just go out and go out for a coffee or something and chat with a friend and things like that. So this has been a very different way of living. It's very isolating. And if you're already feeling very isolated earlier and stuff, it can trigger either anxiety, depression, panic disorder, mood disorders. Maybe you will reach out to the fridge more and eat more and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you think?
Physical impact, mental emotional impact, everything is more exaggerated during this time.
Right, of course, because you're forced to be alone with your thoughts, so you can't really like escape them, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, in a way, spending time by yourself is bringing it up. And so it may seem like an exaggeration at first, but I feel when things are stirring, sometimes they're moving towards a resolution. So it
Yeah.
may seem like a bad trigger, but if it's coming up, maybe it's going to get resolved. Maybe it'll get discussed. Maybe you will give it more attention. Maybe your family will give it more attention.
Right.
In a way, it's not a bad thing. It's made us look into ourselves deeper.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
We attend to it better. Once we are aware and once we're dealing with it, we'll deal with it better. Maybe we'll actually take action about dealing with it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Identify and understand our own issues better.
Yeah. So, doctor, you were saying that, like peers and like the time spent with peers shapes an adolescent's personality a lot, and like it's very important for them. So now that we don't have that avenue open for us, how do you think the parents can help us? Like, how do you think they can connect with us or sort of be a stand-in for our peers?
So I think all of us have to use this time. I think we just have to tell ourselves that it's a temporary situation, and let's use this time as constructively as possible. Because sometimes, otherwise, what happens is the peers taking so much time for the teenagers that there's less family time. So I think let's just take this support, which is it's sort of imposed, but let's use this constructively.
Yeah.
I really believe there's a very old saying from a literary book that says, "You make peace with your mother, you develop roots. And if you make peace with your father, you can touch the sky." So I think family interactions are so huge. The more connected with the parents you will feel, it's very, very grounding for children. To actually, the more communication happens and they're actually really there for them, it gives them so much stability that they can go out there and conquer the world. So a lot of peace and a lot of harmony at home is very important.
Right, right.
So, I mean, it's like from a happy home when you go out and interact, if any crisis happen outside, you can deal with it better. If there's crisis and like I was mentioning, if there's some kind of emotional divorce at home, where on surface people think that they're getting along and they're actually not getting along. And there's a lot of unsaid stress, non-verbal stress in the house. And so, I mean, that can really impact the things adversely. And maybe just a teenager is being seen as the person who's just rebelling and, maybe getting into arguments and they put the blame on them. But it's maybe just some stressful situation at home.
Yeah.
And when families are getting together right now, I cannot emphasize on the family time enough.
Right.
I encourage teenagers as parents to develop that bond and keep that communication open. And I urge normally parents to become very, very approachable and not get scandalized in anything.
Yeah.
Because teenage issues are their issues. So it was not a part of the parents growing up, social media. Social media is such a huge thing and impact on the teenager's life. So I urge parents to understand the world of the teenager. And I urge teenagers to understand that parents only wish them well.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times there's a lot of resentment, I think, from teenagers' side, because the parents might not understand them or anything properly. So they just think that they just want what's not best for me.
So we facilitate, we encourage communication at home, and we facilitate family communication in our therapy environment as well. Like we call them over and we guide the conversation and open up the communication channels that have been blocked for a while.
Yeah.
I totally believe that we should not put like a beautiful carpet on top of our issues. It's all right to bring up the dirt and clean it and have a clean harmony.
Right.
To bring it out rather than hide it and pretend it's not there.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about
it. Of course, yeah. So, doctor, on a lighter note, I wanted to know if there's anything constructive that you've been up to this lockdown?
I think I've become a better cook. I thought that I'll be doing a lot of painting, and I think we were all forced to do a lot of housework. Something good has come out, so my cooking has become reasonably good. I enjoy it better than I did before.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think it's helped all of us hone our household skills, I guess.
Absolutely. And those are living skills we may eventually really need at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, Doctor, to end with, I have one last question. What positive do you think has come out of lockdown for adolescents specifically?
I think so many times because the house has been a stressful environment because of whatever reason,
Yeah.
and they just disconnect in a manner and totally build either a social media life or they build like a very friend-oriented life, and all of a sudden they just realize, oh, this is my house, these are my
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
I mean, so disconnection which was going on for a while, and when you're drifting, you continue drifting. So, and sometimes it's you burn the bridges of even the communications at all. So I think this has given us this positive situation where we were forced to spend time with each other, and we realized, oh, my family is not such bad people after all. They can have fun because we were forced to have fun together.
Yeah.
So I think it's really positive family bonding. I think everybody's talking about it. They feel much
Yeah.
good. They've done fun things.
Definitely.
Showed hobbies together. Cooked
Yeah.
together, cleaned together.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's all, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time. It means a lot that you joined us today.
I think you're doing a wonderful job of bringing this conversation up because in our country, I mean, not many people talk about it, address about it, and I think it seriously needs a lot of talking about it.
Yeah.
Kudos to your project.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.